All right, we have a 2004 Chevy Impala. We're going to change the power steering pump on it, flush the system, and put new fluid in it. You can see here, this was down in the frame when I got it. The belt was off, and the pulley had came off the car. So you can see there. And actually, one of the bolts is already loosed on this. I don't know what the deal is with that, but this bolt down there is already halfway out. I mean, you can see it's the factory pump. It's pretty old. So the first thing we're going to do is suck all the fluid out of the pump. I have this hooked up to my air compressor. If you don't have one of these, you can. There's other pumps you can get. It's just good to get as much of the old fluid out of there as possible before you start, and it makes less of a mess once you take that pump off. So the first step for me is just going to be to pump the system down as much as possible, get that as empty as possible, and then we'll start on taking that pump off. All right, so I got that reservoir dry. You can see here it doesn't hold a whole lot of fluid, so it doesn't take too long to do that. So now if your pulley was still on your car, you would remove your belt, and then this would be on here like this. And what you do is you rotate this pulley till a hole in the pulley lines up with one of the 3 bolts that hold this power steering pump on. There's one here, one there, and one back here. And this is the one that was already loose. So you would just rotate that, pull one out, pull one out, pull one out. Since this pulley's broken, it's plastic GM. I won't be doing that. But it's basically, it's self-explanatory. Once you get your belt off, you'll see the 3 bolts. And like I said, you'll just turn your pulley till one of the holes lines up, put your socket in there, run it out, do the next one, and then this pump should pull up. So I'll get started on taking these 3 out. All right, I got all 3 bolts out. One thing I'll add is it's easier to take the high pressure hose off right here, the line off, while it's still kind of in the car, so it holds it for you. They're not super tight, 16 millimeter. And like I said, I got the 3. It's completely loose, but I just went ahead and loosened this. The other line you have here is your return line, low pressure line. You can usually pull this up enough to get the clamp out. There's a regular hose clamp on that. You just pull that back and then clamp that. And then you will, even though we sucked all the fluid out of here, you're still going to lose some fluid, more than likely, so it's easy. It's better just to put a pan under the car to catch anything that might fall out. As you can see here, I didn't really lose anything out of this one so far. Taking the fluid out first. It makes it a lot less messier job, and you have to change this reservoir and put it on the new pump anyway. So anyway, we will pull this up and then get that low pressure clamp off. All right, once you get your high pressure line off, you'll have the low pressure. Just pull your pump up, and you have this hose clamp right here, and then you just work this line off. Now your pump is free from the engine, and we'll go over and take the reservoir off, and then we will I'll show you how you take these pulleys off. Even though this pulley's already off, I'll show you anyway. That way there's no questions on how that comes on and off. You do need a special tool for that, but I'll go over that when we get over there to the bench. These clamps are what hold the reservoir to the pump. It's probably easier with 2 people. I usually just put it in a vise and let it hold it. And then what I do here is I just put a screwdriver in here and pull this tab up. You pull this tab up and then tap on this and it'll come out. They're not very hard to get out. It's just a little awkward if you only have 2 hands. Like I said, the vise is easier. And you can actually just pull it up and then just tap on your hand or on your screwdriver a little bit, and it will. Once you get this tab clear like this, you can just tap it out the rest of the way with just a small hammer. You won't need the screwdriver, but that's how these come on. And like I said, they're a little bit challenging if you're by yourself or if you don't have a vise. It's probably easier if you have another person or if you have a vise. So anyway, that's how those 2 come off. All right, so once you got those 2 clamps off, then this will just pop right off. There's a seal here, and then, it goes on here. So now the next thing we're going to do is take this So that's how you get the reservoir on and off. You know, putting it back on would be the reverse. You just put these on and tap them on until this tab slips down into the slot, and then they're on all the way. So now we're going to pull. Like I said, this pulley's already broken off, but I'm going to go ahead and pull this off anyway to show you how it's done. And you will need a special tool for that. And I'll kind of show you that, and we'll go over taking these pulleys on and off these pumps, because you really can't do it when it's on the car. It's easier to do it when it's on the bench. So anyway, that'll be our next thing. We'll get the tool out, and we'll get this broken part off of here, and then we'll put the new one on, the new pump. All right, one thing, when you're putting this back on, you're going to have an O-ring on here. It'll be pretty flat looking if it's been on there a while. Make sure you put the new pump. The new pump should come with a new O-ring, which this one did. So anyway, it's right here. So you just slide that on here where it goes into the pump, and then we'll go ahead and put this reservoir on real quick. Before you put that O-ring on, put a little power steering fluid on just to lube it up, and then you just set it on there like this, and then we will drive these back on there, and then that'll be done. This reservoir will be on the new pump. And of course there's there should be one of these in the new pump. You won't be able to put this on without it, but make sure you take that out. Alright, so you just start those on there, and they'll be out here, and you just tap them on, lightly tap them on until this drops down into the that tab drops down, and that means it's locked into place. So that's all there is to putting this back on. Now we'll work on the pulley. Okay, if you're going to do a power steering pump on your own, you need one of these pullers to get the pulley on and off. This is an old one from KD Tools. I've had this for probably 20 years. Auto parts stores, if you don't have your own, the auto parts stores will rent it. This is pretty much what it comes with. First thing we need to do is pull this off. So I'll kind of show you how the tool sets up to pull that off. But these they'll take them off and put them back on. So you just need this kit if you're going to do the power steering on your own. So you're going to put this in there, kind of set it up like that, and then you slide this sleeve over that holds it on there. And then you're going to get this and screw that down. And then you'll get a wrench and a socket to tighten that, and then that'll pull that off. Alright, so that'll pull it off the shaft. Of course this one's broken, but this was what's in there, so yours will come off all as one piece. So now we got a new pulley, so we'll throw this away, and then we'll use this same tool to put the new pulley on the new pump. Alright, so here we go. We got the new pulley. It's Dorman. They're plastic, but that's what comes on them. So anyway, I like to spray a little lube on that, and then you want to put this on the right way. You want this facing outward towards you, so that if you ever have to pull it off, number one, that's the way it goes on, and then just so you know, this is the way this ridge here faces outward. And that's so you can get the tool on there to ever take it off. And these are press fit, so don't just set it on there and beat on it. You want to use your tool here to put this on the right way. So I'll set that up and I'll show you how that's done. Alright, so you're going to want to get the right stud out of your kit that will screw into your power steering pump. And then you want to put your bearing from the kit put it over there, and then take your thrust washer, put that over there, and then you're going to take this set up here and screw that onto your stud until it's tight. Alright, and then you just screw this down. And what we're going to do is we'll hold this and then we'll screw this down, and that'll push down on this until this pulley bottoms out. So we'll screw this down to it until it's flush, and then you'll hold this end and then screw that, and that'll pull the pulley down. Alright, so this is how it should be set up. Now it's kind of a boring process to put it on, but like I said, you just put your ratchet up here, you hold that stud, and then put a wrench on there and turn that down until this pulley bottoms out, and then you can check it from behind to see, like this, I already put this on about halfway, but anyway, you can see behind here when it bottoms out, and it should almost be flush with the front too. Don't go crazy and just keep torquing on it. These are pretty, once you get them started, they go down pretty easy, so just take it down until it's pretty tight, and then you should be good, and then just check and make sure it's flush. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do this, run this one down, then I'll kind of show you what it looks like afterwards. Alright, so I took the tool off. You can see here it's almost flush with this, with this. And there's really no clearance behind it. So that's, like I said, you want to get it to where it's tight, but you don't want to just go nuts and, these are plastic. So, anyway, that's how it should look after it's on. Now it's ready to go back on the car. So it's just reverse order. We got the pump over here, got the reservoir on, the pulley on. So we'll put that return line on first, hook that up, set the pump back down into the bracket. We'll hook the high pressure line up, tighten that up, put those 3 bolts in, and then we'll flush the system out and bleed it, and we'll go through that in a second. So first thing we'll do is put this return line back on and get the pump back on the bracket. Installation wise, before we get it all back together, the first thing is, you can see here I got the return line. I have a bigger hose fitted tight over the return line from the pump. And the reason I got that like that is because I'm going to flush this system. So if there's any metal or anything in the system, and the fluid's old, it's probably never been flushed. So you want to always flush your system if you put a new pump on or a new rack. So anyway, we're going to first flush it and then we'll bleed it. And the other thing is, there's an O-ring on your high pressure side. I already took it off. I just use a little pick, and you pick it off, and then your new power steering pump should come with a new O-ring. And just put a little power steering fluid on it and put it back on that line before you put the line back into the pump. Anyway, that prevents leaks. So just remember to change that O-ring out before you put it back on. And anyway, we'll put that line back on, and then I'll line up those 3 bolts and tighten this down. Alright, so all I'm doing here is just going around and tightening those 3 bolts that go into the pump. I've already got them started. So you just put your socket through the hole in the power steering pump, or in the power steering pulley, and tighten them down. And you just go around, hit all 3 of them. And make sure they're good and tight. And I already got this one, so that's it for that. This is also where you can check to make sure you put the pulley on right. You can see the pulley's flush and it's lined up with the rest of the pulleys. So this pulley is on at the right depth and is good to go. So we'll put the belt back on, and I'll show you how to flush this. The only problem we might have is this battery came in dead. Had 5 volts when I checked it. I got a feeling we're going to have to put a new battery in it, period. My guess is it was driven, the battery's pretty old, and my guess is it was driven with the alternator off for a while and just killed the battery on it. So we'll see. But anyway, we will put the belt on next, and then we'll flush this system out, and then we'll work on bleeding it. Alright, so I have the hose, the rubber hose, clamped off, And then I put this hose on top of the return line, and I got a container. And what you do, you just crank, take your fuel pump fuse out or whatever, disable it so it won't start, and you crank it over, and it'll pump through pretty good. So I cranked it about 10 seconds, check the fluid, crank it 10 seconds, check the fluid. About every 2 or 3 times, you got to fill the fluid back up. And you just hold that and watch the fluid go in your container. And once it turns clear or whatever color you're using, once it becomes clean, then you're good. Then it's flushed out, and you're good to put the return line back on the pump and go ahead and bleed at that point. So that's, and like I said, you don't want to start the engine because it will drain out faster than you can keep up with it. So the best way to do it is to disable the engine first, run the starter for about 10 seconds. And like I said, you only have to do it about maybe 5 times, and then the fluid will start becoming clean when it comes through there. And once it's clean when it comes through, you're done. It's flushed out. It's out of your rack, out of your lines, and you'll have new fluid, only new fluid in your new pump. So the next step we'll do is we'll go ahead and bleed the system. But that's how you would flush this system out if you didn't have one of those fancy machines. So anyway, the next step, or the next process we'll begin is the bleeding process. All right, the proper way to bleed these things, Mighty Vac sells a bleeding kit for your hand pump, your regular Mighty hand pump. They have this one, which you just press it into the reservoir. This one, different types, 4s and stuff. And on this GM, I'm going to use this one here. So you just put it over the hole and press down on it. You kind of gotta hold it on there before you pump it to get suction on it. I don't know. I think they would. I wish they'd make a different adapter. You can't really use this adapter to push down on it, down in there, because of these notches. It'll leak air past that. So you almost have to use this one. And it's got a rubber seal on it, and you'll push that on. Put a cup between your Mighty Vac. And what they say is you pump it up to 20 pounds on your gauge and hold it there. And that should draw most of the air out. You do that, 3 or 4 times. And then they tell you to, after you get done doing that, they want you, the GM procedure, I looked it up. Then they want you to start the car, run the wheels back and forth 5 times, and then recheck it. And you always want to make sure you check your fluid while you're doing this. You may draw a little bit of fluid into this, but you shouldn't draw too much if you don't have any air leaks. Now, if you have an air leak, it'll actually suck the fluid out and go into there. So if you're sucking a bunch of fluid into your cup there, then you have some kind of air leak in your line here that you want to... Sorry, someone's pulling up to the garage. I don't know who it is. Anyway, that's the procedure. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I just want to kind of show you the tools for that. Maybe next time I'll have someone here and I can kind of show you a little bit better. But that's procedure on bleeding it out. And like I said, always check your fluid level as you're, after you do this, check your fluid level. Then turn the wheels back and forth 5 times. Check your fluid level. And then you should be good to go at that point. Your pump should be nice and quiet. There shouldn't be any air bubbles in it. And you should be ready to hit the road with it. So anyway, I know that bleeding procedure is kind of clunky, but I really needed someone here to hold the camera instead of the tripod or something. So it's about as good as this one's going to get. I'll try to do another video on my next one that's a little more in-depth on the bleeding part. Other than that, we'll get this done and get this hoopty back on the road. Alright, one thing I'll add is you want to pump this up to about 20 pounds. Don't go much over 20. The manufacturer recommends about 20. And it'll tell you in the book it shouldn't drop more than 7 to 10 pounds at a certain amount of time. So that's just, I just wanted to add that. Don't pump it up to like 30 or 40 pounds. Just pump it to 20 and you should be good on that. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify that real quick.